Are you ready to get the support you need for your author career and life? Join international indie bestseller Angela J. Ford and fantasy author Stephanie Wabwa as they talk all things writing, publishing, and the real life of an indie author. Welcome to the Indie Author Lifestyle Show. Living your best indie life starts here.
Welcome to the Indie Author Lifestyle Show with me, Angela J. Ford.
And with me, Stephanie Wabwa.
Awesome. Well, let's launch in. Stephanie, how are you? How's your week been? What are you working on?
Week has been very, very good. I am super excited to announce that today I begin writing. So I'm really excited. I'm currently brainstorming names. Usually I would have a title for the book by now, and it hasn't come to me. And I'm like, I like to have a title because I don't know, it helps me. It's like I know what I'm writing and I know what to focus on. So I am working on that. That is something I do want to get done, probably hopefully by the end of this week, have my title. But I'm super excited. All of my plotting is done, all my outlining is done, filled in all of my plot holes, at least enough for draft one. And so now it is writing time. So I'm super excited. I am diving in today. My word count goal. Let's see if I make it, guys. We'll tune in next week and follow up if I actually did it. But the goal is to jot 15,000 words. So it's pretty doable for me. I'm hoping I can get it done, and I'm super excited. What about you? What writing projects do you have going on right now?
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's massive now that you're getting to the writing part, which is my favorite part. I am a little bit of a slower writer, and I think this might be because of the pantser versus plotter thing. You plotted out your story, so 15,000 words sounds great. I did not plot out my story, so my focus is to get 10,000 really good words in this week. That is my goal, and I'm still writing my dark fae book. That's what I'm working on currently, so we'll see how it goes. It should be fun. I am probably about 20 to 30,000 words away from the end. So a lot of big stuff has already happened. So I'm really excited about it.
That is awesome. Away from the end. I thought you were going to say the halfway point. I was like, oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Speedy hands over there. Well, that is super awesome. I'm excited. I can't wait for that novel to get into my hands so I can read all things Dark Fae. I mean, I just love anything Fae regardless. So I'm really excited about that. But today is going to be really fun because today you are in the hot seat.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Exciting. For those who are listening, if you do not know, Angela J. Ford is an international best-selling author, and it's super cool because now we get to just pick her brain about indie author life. She's been doing this for such a long time, has so many books out. I believe you've already published, 10 novels now, yes?
Yes, 10 novels and one
Nice.
short story. So
Super awesome. So I'm really excited to just dive in today. Today's topic, we're just diving into having an indie author career and how you got there and what are just some of your best advice for those who are wanting to make this their full-time life, right? So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. So my first question to you is, were you always aware of what an indie author was, and did you always want to become one when you first started writing?
actually, no, I was not aware of what an indie author was. I started writing when I was 12 years old, and really it was because I was inspired by traditionally published authors. I love epic fantasy. That was what I read, of course. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I grew up having my dad read The Hobbit out loud to me. My mom would read The Chronicles of Narnia out loud to me and my sisters. I have 4 sisters. So it was just, I just grew up with these stories being poured into me. So naturally, when I thought about writing, I thought about doing what they did. I was thinking about the traditional career and where going out and querying agents and having them submit those novels on my behalf and really just running my career for me. I thought a lot about going on book tours, and one of the things that I love doing is traveling. And so one of my focuses, really wanted to do an international book tour because I thought that would be amazing. So that really was my focus when I started writing. When I was a teenager, I went ahead and I got one of those books on writing, and I sat down and I went through and I made a list of agents and I started sending out query letters. And, they would write back and they'd say, hey, thanks for writing in. Your work looks interesting, but it's not what we're looking for right now. And I really don't know how many different letters I got back, but as I was going forward, my sisters, they were always encouraging me to keep writing. They were like, we really just want to read it. We just want it to be in a good format where we can sit down and read it. And I remember going over to, it was either Kinko's or Staples, and just having the book put together in a beautiful binding, just so that it'd be easy for them to read. And I think that was my first little jot down into indie publishing, because once the book was bound, I was like, this is so much easier. It's not that pretty because anything you get from those quick shops, it's not that pretty, but it was 200 pages put together into a manuscript. And I was like, this is easy. I can sit down, it's printed out, and I can read it. I was like, if there were a way for me to do that, that would be awesome. I want to do that more. And then I went off to college and kind of forgot all about that. But after I graduated from college, I started seeing the indie publishing thing coming up more and more. And I was like, that's exactly what I want. I don't want an agent. I don't want to sit there for years and years and years trying to submit my novel to get published. I really wanted to get into the hands of readers right now. And so once that became my goal, I started looking more into it. And that was back when publishing ebooks was really big. And I started seeing people talking about, oh, okay, I enrolled my book in Kindle Select Publishing and I got 8,000 downloads on like during this amount of time. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I should do that. And so I started doing my homework. I learned about Kindle Direct Publishing. I learned that you can upload your ebooks to that. And this was back before you could also do print as well. That was back when CreateSpace, that was the hub for print books. So I learned about CreateSpace and I learned what I could do with that. And there were so many options that I hadn't known before, and that really awakened my mind. And then the other thing before I started publishing, well, I'll back up a little bit. I did go ahead and I used something that was similar to a vanity publisher to actually publish my very first short story. And what vanity publishing is, you kind of sell your rights to a different company and you pay them thousands of dollars to go ahead and edit your book and get it out there. It is something that authors should never, ever, ever do, because basically you're losing the rights to your work. And not only that, you're also having to pull all this money out ahead of time to pay for someone else to get your book out there. And it's just a little bit of a scam because you are probably never going to sell enough copies of that book to make your royalties back. So I'd highly recommend doing the indie author route and going it yourself. But I did go that other route first off. And so I do have that kind of negative experience under my belt, just showing me that, hey, this is not the way you do it. You need to do it yourself. And so in 2015, that's when I actually sat down and went through the steps to publish my first book. But before I did that, I knew that the number one thing that I need to really focus in on was marketing. And I knew so much about marketing and how powerful it was already because I had a Christian rock band when I was a teenager, which was a lot of fun. I played drums and guitar and that just really rocked out. It was so much fun. And I was in charge of the band. I made sure we were booked. I remember me and my sisters, we recorded an album and we ran out of money to actually go ahead and make all the CDs. We wanted to make 1,000 CDs. And so we had to make $1,000, I think, for that. And so we did a little bit of a fundraiser where we had people pre-order. And I think we may have given them a t-shirt, but we gave them something for free. Maybe it was a poster or something like that. And we got $1,000 and we turned around and used that money to go ahead and order our CDs and ship them out to people. And I remember doing that. And that was my first experience with marketing and also a combination of crowdfunding and shooting out pre-order bonuses as well for people. And that was very powerful because I saw what I could do with marketing. I was like, okay, we're making money. People are finding out about us. We're being known. People really are excited to support us. So when I am putting my books out into the world, I need to make sure I'm doing the same thing because I want to recoup my expenses. And with the band, we had paid for our own recording, which was very similar to with indie publishing. You pay for things up front and then you sell the books to make your money back. And so that was something that I knew I need to do. And in order to learn more about book marketing, what I decided to do was work with different entrepreneurs that were putting their books out. One caveat is that they were all nonfiction authors. So they were doing more self help, which is a little bit different. But once I started working with them and seeing what they were doing, I saw that it wasn't too much different from the fiction world. There are a lot of things in fiction that you can do that are more fun than the nonfiction world. But once I started diving into that, I saw that, okay, the people that are doing well, they already have a group of people around them to support them. They have people on their list that are going to read and review their books. They have an email list. They have a website. They can do the pre order bonuses. They can give people rewards for buying the book ahead of time. And I was looking at all those different things that they were doing, and I realized, aha, I need to make sure I'm doing this when I actually publish my first books so that I can be a successful author. So, in short, that is the answer to your question. I did not know about indie publishing before, but as I started looking around and seeing what other people were doing, I saw that, oh, this is something that I should be doing. This is what I want to do because my goal was and still is to get my books into the hands of readers as fast as possible without waiting for an agent to approve me and say, okay, now it's good.
Okay, so that was absolutely amazing. First of all, so much to unpack there. Your journey is really awesome. Not that we're ever happy for the negative experiences, but it was a good thing you went through that because then it really opened your eyes to the benefits of indie publishing. I know that till this day, there are some who see indie publishing as more amateur and they don't view it as, you're not a professional author if you can't get a publishing house, to put your book out for you, right? So I just think it's really interesting that not only you went indie, but then you were able to be so successful being indie. But one of the things that I did want to tackle is, so indie versus traditional publishing, right? There are those who would say, okay, I want to be an indie author, I want to do this thing, I want to keep all of my money in my pocket, and I want to do things my way, have a little bit more fun with the process. What would you say an author would need to be able to sustain that, right, and to be able to actually be successful? Because for some authors, the idea of being indie sounds great, but they probably may not, have the work ethic to maintain an indie author life and to actually be successful and put food on the table with their books, right? So, what would you say as someone who has reached that level of success with being indie? What would authors need to be able to make it and to remain successful?
Well, I think one of the number one things is persistence and then having that ability to learn and grow, not being afraid to take a risk, try different things, and then also not being afraid to ask for help. I definitely would not be where I am today without being surrounded by people that were willing to share what was going on behind the scenes of their own book releases. And then also without taking courses and learning from other people that are where I want to be. Like I take courses and classes from authors that have done $1 million in sales in a year. I haven't gotten there yet, but that is definitely something that's where I want to be. And so I know that looking up to gurus and looking to people that are where I want to be and kind of following their style and seeing what they're doing that's working is really going to help. And then also with the indie lifestyle, one of the things I realize is that it does take money up front in order to become an indie author. And so it's really important to know your budget and know what you're working with. It doesn't have to be super expensive, but you do have to make sure that you do have the funds set aside for that. And so the things that I really focus on are cover design. Like having a gorgeous cover design that can stand up among the bestsellers is massive, just because people do judge a book by their cover. And then once they get past that cover and open it up, then they need to be hooked in. So the writing has to be good, the editing has to be good. And so I've worked with several different editors, but reaching out to people that are going to go in and that are going to challenge me and push me and say, hey, this is the part in your book where you always kind of fall back on this one thing, or you use this word over and over again, or you need to change up your sentence structure. Those sorts of things, it's not fun when someone critiques your work. It's not always fun to hear, but it really helps with pushing and helping you become a better author. And when you're a better author, then your readers really appreciate that because they can go back and say, hey, I'm loving this. And I've noticed how my style has changed over the years and how I've learned to improve my writing style. And that's been awesome. I love it when people say, hey, I read your first book and I really enjoyed it, but I also read the latest book that came out and wow, it's really changed. And I love that because it means that I'm growing and learning and I'm going to continue to attract readers because my style is so much better. And then the other thing that I would definitely say is just be willing to focus on marketing and don't get stuck in your marketing habits. Be willing to go where the crowd is going. Like right now, audiobook is a really big market. That's huge. And I believe that is going to be like a massive up and coming market. And so that's definitely where I need to spend more of my time is in creating those audiobooks. I've only done a couple as of the recording of this episode, but I definitely need to do more of those, just really to focus in on the people that love audio and listen to it. So yeah, I would definitely say perseverance. And one of the other things that I did do was have a backup plan. So I realized that when I was looking into becoming my own boss and doing some freelancing as well as publishing my own books, I build websites on the side and I do marketing for other people as well. I knew that most most millionaires don't have one stream of revenue. They have multiple streams of revenue. Of course, some of it is active and some of it is passive. They have a good combination of it so that when one thing fails, they're not broke and out there on the streets. So I was thinking it through and I was like, I have to have multiple streams of income. So I think that is definitely another thing that is really important to me is having those multiple streams of income. And it also helps. So when I need editing that costs, more than $1,000, I can still hire an editor and go ahead with that because I'm not relying on just one stream of income. I have multiple streams of income. And so I think that's really important too, to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success by having those multiple streams of income. I'm not saying that you can't solely rely on your author career. You probably will be able to once you get it off the ground and get it started, but you have to have the right mindset. And it's more of an entrepreneur mindset. It's not just, I'm a creative writer and I'm just going to go wherever the story takes me. It's more of the, I am a creative writer. I'm doing excellent work with my story, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I have the right mindset. I know this is a business that I need to build up. And when you are building up a business, it takes money upfront to start it. You don't have to have thousands and thousands of thousands of dollars, but you still have to think about the fact that this is a business. I have startup costs and I need to make sure that whatever methods I'm using to fund those, I'm not going to be in a lot of debt afterwards, or it's something that can easily be paid off. So keep that in mind. And I think that really helps with the author mindset and making sure you're setting yourself up for success.
So many good points right there. I really love that you touched on multiple streams of income because that's something, because I mean, the biggest joke, right, is, artists are always starving. And usually that's just because we always have all our eggs in one basket. And when that basket cracks, we're in trouble because now it's like, dear God, okay, I wrote my next book, but I can't hire an editor. I can't hire a book cover designer. And, if I do it myself, it's not going to come off the shelves. So I really think it's awesome that you highlight is, being an indie author means that you are an entrepreneur, you are a business owner, right? And so you have to think like a business and you have to act like a business. you know it's fun, it's awesome, you're doing work that you love, but at the end of the day, this is a business. And so you have to manage it like one. I think it's so awesome that you touched on that. And in regards to that, then, do you think that if an author is not ready to get their hands dirty with marketing, they just want to write something pretty and put it out there, and then they expect it, if you put it out there, they'll come to you, which is not true, right? So do you think that if they're not willing to, I don't want to say they're not capable. I think everyone is capable. It's just some people are not willing. And so do you think if they're not willing to get their hands dirty in marketing, if they're not willing to do the work to get their book out there and to manage their writing like a business owner, do you think that the indie author path is for them, or do you think that they actually should pursue a traditional career? What do you think?
Well, I think it depends on what you want as an individual. So when I first started out, I was thinking more along the lines of, I just want to get my book into the hands of the people that want to read it. So my sisters and then a few friends. And that's what I was thinking. So, hey, 30 copies. And if so that's your mindset and that's what you're thinking, then there's nothing wrong with publishing the book and putting it out there and then doing nothing because you just want to get your book into the hands of people. But if you want it to be a career and you want it to make money or even to be another source of income, a side source of income, or whatever you want it to be, then you need to do more. So I think it really depends. If your goal is to get a publishing deal, then go for the publishing deal. If you like having full control and you want to be an indie author and make sure that you're in control of the entire process, then go that route. But I think if you're looking to make it a career as an author, then I think really the indie author route is the way to go. And I also think there are some publishing houses that can help with that. And so in that case, you would be more of a hybrid author, which I know there are some out there, but I think Amazon has a really cool imprint, which it would be awesome if Amazon offered me a deal just because I would love to do at least one novel for them and have them release that through their imprint and then get boosted up in the ranks and then get all this visibility and then people can see me and see, oh, I like this book by her, let me see what else she has out there. So I think things like that help. But some of the other smaller publishing houses, they don't do as much to push their authors and really get them out there. So you might find that you published a book and you had a traditionally published deal, but it did not get out there as much as you wanted it to be. And it pretty much went nowhere aside from what they gave you up front. So I really just think it depends on goals. I think you need to know what your goals are before you get started. And then as you're learning more about the process, you can decide, okay, like I'm that person that I want this to be my career. I want to make some serious money out of writing, marketing, and publishing my own books. And if that's your goal, then I would say indie career hands down.
Nice. And when it comes to pursuing that career, right? Do you think there's a benefit to studying certain elements of traditional publishing and then using those to add it to your indie career? And what would you think those are?
Well, that's a great question. Um, Earlier this year, I was approached by a traditional publishing house just to on board and work in their marketing department, which I thought would be interesting. And so I was looking at the different things that they were doing. And of course, they did more things like trying to put the author out there, get their books into the bookstores, that sort of thing. I think they were even putting together media kits for their authors. But the thing that I saw that they were doing, which did not really surprise me, was that they were building out a website or a landing page for those books. They were doing pre-order bonuses and they were really trying to engage with the readers. And I
Mhm,
was looking at that and I was like, that's not any different from anything that I'm doing right now. So
mhm,
I think that the problem, and this is not all publishing houses, but just from what I've seen with the traditional publishing houses, is that they are a little bit behind when it comes to the digital marketing. And the digital marketing is all the online things. It's the having your author platform, it's the social media, it's making sure that you are networking and engaging with your readers and building up that loyal audience. I think that's where traditional publishing is a little bit behind. And I think it's a little bit harder to do that when you have such a big team that's managing all of these moving parts. Like for myself, I know that it's so much easier for me to throw up a page on my website and make a book available for pre-order and oh let me think, oh I want to do these 5 things for the pre-order bonuses, let me just go ahead and stick those pictures on there and I'm good to go in a couple of hours. Like it is not going to take me days or even weeks in order to get this stuff going. And then also, I'm going to have my own email list where readers can really hear from me. They have that direct one-to-one connection. And I think that's really important. And so it just depends. I think studying book marketing and more importantly digital marketing is more important for authors to do, and if there are things that you see that traditional publishers are doing, then that would work for you. I definitely say go ahead, learn those tactics and take them in. Just because I studied a more corporate approach to marketing, that's what I learned in college, and so I'm using a lot of those strategies, but they are focused more for fiction books. And so I think marketing in general helps, but I think it really helps knowing what's working. Because if you're trying a dead marketing strategy like direct mailing, I would say no.
Direct mail, my mind. That's a throwback.
I just had to go there. I actually got a direct mail like recently, and I was like, wow, this is old. Like this is old school, and it doesn't work for me.
We
So
don't do direct mail, not anymore. No.
no, so I would say those old strategies. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on is the fact that I have never seriously tried to get my books into bookstores.
Mm.
Done it. I've had my books in a couple of the indie stores around the Nashville area, which is where I live. And it's fine, it's okay, but it really hasn't done much for me. And I think it really depends on what your goals are with that. I really am trying to reach an audience that's mainly online that are reading ebooks and downloading audiobooks. And so that's what my focus is. And for the hardcovers or the paperbacks, I really want people to go to my website and order those directly from me because I get a higher royalty with that. And so bookstores they just haven't been my focus. There's nothing wrong with bookstores. They're great. But for me, I'm trying to do the least amount of work and get the most amount of result. And so for me, bookstores is too much work and then the payoff is not enough. And so I'm just trying to make sure that my return on investment is very good. And I don't have all the time in the world to do things. And so that's really important. So really focusing more on my email list and digital marketing strategies like running ads and those sorts of things, newsletter swaps with other authors. Those are the things that are helping me sell books, and that makes more money. And so I'm focusing more on those kind of the long-term things where it's going to take me months and months and months to see any progress. I'm not focusing on those things just because it's just too much work for not enough payoff. And so I think that's also something when you're thinking through your marketing strategy and trying to plan those out, also think about how much time and commitment you have and then go for that. And then one other thing that I did not focus on too much. When I first started out, I was doing a lot of social media, and then I pulled back from that just because it was too much work for me. My husband now runs my social media, and he helps me out with that. And because he's doing that, it's like I have another person on my team that is managing that is running that is making sure that that happens, and I can't do it all myself. So also think about that. Just don't try to spread yourself too thin because that's where the burnout comes in. Just do the things that you can spend time on and focus on. But I would definitely say if you aren't doing marketing, then it really, like, marketing makes all the difference with the book sales.
Yeah, no, so good, especially the points about social media and bookstores, which both of those I do want to touch on. So first we'll talk about social media. Do you think, I know that for both you and I, we've kind of relented from social a bit, just because one, social is no longer social, if you get my drift, you know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where, and I think that the writing and reading community is feeling that. And when you're looking at booktubers, when you're looking at authors, especially fiction authors, they're no longer wanting it to be just this these platforms of I just pump sales into you all the time. Like they want social to be social. Like, okay, one day you're writing, the next day you're walking your dog in the park, the next day you're traveling to the UK, you know what I mean? And so do you believe that when it comes to being an indie author, there doesn't need to be so much emphasis on social media? Rather, you need to stick to other tactics like list building and things like that, which is something else I know that we'll talk about in another episode. Can't shove everything into this one, even though there's just so much we could talk about. But focusing more on other things like list building rather than, oh, I need to, get 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I need to have all these, Facebook page likes, and I need to be on Twitter, and I need to be on, I need to do all the things on social. It's like, can you pull back from social media and still have a success in the author career? What do you think?
Absolutely. I would say 100% absolutely. You do not have to be on social media in order to be an indie author. It definitely helps, and people do want that place where they can go to find you and see what you're up to. That's not on your website. It used to be that blogging was massive, and I still think that there's a place for blogging and all of that, but people, your fans are going to want to hear from you. But I don't think it has to be, you don't have to be on all the social media platforms. So, for example, I have a Twitter account, and I worked on that Twitter account and I grew it up, and I had about 11,000 followers, and it's slowly, steadily just kind of dying and fading away. And now most of my website traffic actually used to come from Instagram, but now, not Instagram, from Twitter. But now when I get on Twitter and I post something on Twitter, it's like shouting into a crowd, like no one is hearing, no one is seeing. None of my website traffic comes from Twitter anymore. It's just kind of died down for me. And that's fine. It's not a big deal. But then I also have those 11,000 people on Twitter that I can't reach anymore, which is not a big deal. If I had focused on leaving those people over to my email list, then I would still have a way to reach them. But the thing with platforms is that they're always changing. Same thing with Facebook. It used to be so easy to be visible on Facebook. And now you have to make sure that you're posting consistently and people are interacting with your stuff in order for it to be seen. Because Facebook is trying to show people what they want to see. And if people aren't liking your content and they're not commenting on it, then Facebook is like, no one really wants to see this. So we're going to let this one stay buried because no one wants to see it anyway. So it just makes it really tough to build up your platform. Same thing with Instagram. Instagram is also the same way, especially with the hashtags being shadow banned and all of that nonsense, which we can dig into that on another episode. It's almost like we need a separate episode for every single social media platform. It's just different. And I find that people, if I point them to my social media and my newsletters, they go, oh, I don't do Facebook, or I don't do Instagram, or I don't do Twitter. And I'm like, okay, fine, just go to my website. At least you read email and you can go to my website, and that's that. And I always get overwhelmed with social media. Like when I get on Facebook, there's always so much going on. It just kind of makes me feel like I'm going crazy just because there's not a focus on one simple thing. It's like there are book covers over here, and then here's my author group, and then these people are over here talking about what they're reading. But then there's also like friends and family and what's going on in their lives. And it's just so much noise that it just makes me feel like I'm going nuts. And I don't think we were meant to spend all this time kind of like dashing from topic to topic to topic to topic, because it just makes my brain feel wild. And I really want to hone in and focus on one thing at a time. And I think that's what email is for. Email helps with focusing on that one thing at a time. Having those groups that are outside of Facebook really helps me focus on that. And then also having the courses. And so when I want to learn and grow, I usually turn to a book or a course, or I listen to podcasts or an audiobook, because there's not all of this other noise and these notifications popping up telling me about all these other things that I can see. And I think that's also the problem with social media, is that a reader can go to look at your stuff, and then they're going to get, I don't know, 5, 10 notifications from all these other things that are going to pull their attention away. And I think that's what's frustrating to me about social media, is that there are too many distractions. There are too many different ways for people to be pulled away. And so I want them to go to one place where they can focus on, okay, this is my book time. These are the books that I want to read. Oh, here are some other book recommendations. Things like that I think would be more valuable and useful. And so I think platforms like BookBub, where it's just more of a hub for readers, are better. Goodreads, I don't really like Goodreads that much, but even that, like the ideal behind Goodreads is better because it's a hub for readers. And I think those things are more useful and helpful than just having all of this social media and trying to keep up with it. So I'd say if you're a new author starting out and you do want to engage with social media, just pick one platform and be there and learn that platform and grow it. And don't try to be everywhere at one time, because that's where the overwhelm and the burnout can come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, we're definitely going to do a different episode about this, but even for new readers, um you, even if you do get proficient at one platform, you don't need to add another one to your plate because your readers might not even be there in the first place, you know. So that's definitely something we'll dive into another time, but it's true, you know. I love that in a world where it's all about social media, but social media is constantly changing, storefronts never change. Your website is your digital storefront. It never changes. People will always come back to, what's your website? Where can I go buy X, Y, and Z? And that should be on your website. If you're only promoting that on social media, you know, we'll dig into this at another time, but that should not be the move, because you know, like Angela mentioned, that's 11,000 people that she technically has no more access to, right? Because they've kind of just faded into the wind. However, if these people are on your email list and they got there by going through your website, no matter what algorithm changes, no matter if Mark Zuckerberg decides to shut down Facebook and Instagram tomorrow, you still have your audience. And when your next book is ready to drop, boom, there they are. You can get that out to them. You don't have to be nervous that, oh dear God, I had 50,000 followers on Instagram, now they're all gone, I have no one to publish to now. So it's definitely something that we will be digging into more and more, because there is this growing revelation of people kind of pulling back from social media because they're like, oh well, it's not as effective as we thought it once was anymore, especially when it became more pay for play, right? So well, definitely, there's just a lot to dig into that. So we'll talk about that another time. But I love that you mentioned that. You know, websites are everlasting in the digital world. Like,
Yes, they're
so,
amazing.
yeah, an author platform is, I mean, you need to have one, period, point blank. You can't, it's just one of those things where it has to be in your arsenal, you know, like you need to have something that people can go to directly, that is strictly for your work and for them connecting with you, and for them, you know, being able to give you their coin, and for them to get on, you know, a list or into some type of community that you control, where you can get your new work out to them without any issues. So I just think that's super awesome. And then my, you know, one final thing I want to talk about was the bookstores. With traditional publishing, the biggest thing is, you know, you want to get into Barnes and Noble, right? Like that is the highlight and glory of every author that says that they want to be, you know, a traditionally published author, is, oh dear God, you know, Bloomsbury is gonna, you know, be behind me and I'm gonna get into Barnes and Noble. And it's like, first of all, 90% of those books sell less than 1,000 copies a year. Okay? I hope y'all caught that. That was some tea. Pick up your cups, drink it today. You know, I'm not trying to throw shade, but that's just the reality of it. 90% of books that are on those shelves, you walk in, they look beautiful, they're gorgeous. They did so much work to get on those shelves. They will sell less than 1,000 copies a year. Some of them don't sell at all, and then they just get wasted. You know, like the cover gets ripped off, and then the rest of the book gets trashed because it's not selling. And so I just think that's something that we got to address, you know, is that people think, oh well, I want to be traditionally published, and I want, you know, I want to be in Barnes and Noble, and I want to be in bookstores, I want to be in libraries, and I want to be in local stores. And it's like, but is that really beneficial to you, especially going into the new decade where everything is truly turning to e-commerce and reading books digitally? And people, you know, the majority of people, I mean, yes, they love paperbacks, but they're constantly consuming books on Kindle. That's just the thing now. You know, it's either I'm reading on Kindle or I'm listening on Audible. And maybe if I love it, I'll go buy the paperback version too and stick it on my shelf because it's pretty. And so, you know, there's only a small, you know, group of traditionally published authors that even make it to the top to sell thousands upon thousands of books from a bookstore, right? They're still getting more sales from, you know, an Amazon, you know. So I did want to talk a little bit about that before, you know, we let you go, is bookstores. Do you really think, you know, for authors, what would you say to authors that are like, oh, but I want to get in a bookstore, I want my book to be on Barnes and Noble, and mom and dad to be proud that when they walk in, they see my spine on the shelf too. You know, what would you encourage those authors, just to let them know, like, it's really not what you think it was, maybe 20 some odd years ago, but not anymore?
I think in this case, you should see for yourself. At that point, if you're really convinced that bookstores are the way to go, or you really want to get your books into bookstores, I think you should just go see for yourself. And by that, I mean, go to your local bookstore and plan an event and have a book signing and have the people in your community that you know come out and support that and see how many books you sell. I think that would be the best way to go. And with those events, you'll probably sell more than you would if you just had your books on the bookshelf. But I think those events are fun because you can have people come out. And if you put together a fun agenda, that can be wonderful. But it, I used to do more like book events and book signings where I would go out and I would sit and I would do that sort of thing. But I did sell books and it was great. But it also was a little stressful because I did have to order all of my author copies of the book in, and that costs money. I don't care. I mean, if you're ordering 100 copies and it didn't cost me that much, it was less than $10 a book, but still, think about it. That's a lot of money. And then if I did not sell all of those books, then that's a lot of product that I had to take back and put in my closet and just kind of wait. So I think that, it's just something that if you have a big reach in your community and you can reach a lot of people, if you can reach hundreds or thousands of people in your community, then it's probably going to be worthwhile because people like that whole local author vibe and they love that. And so if you have that and you can go out and plan an event like that, and you can also partner with other people, then it actually might be worthwhile to have like 1 to 2 signings a year in your community. I think that's where you'll see the most benefit. But getting out to all the other bookstores and stuff, that is going to take work because people don't know you. And when people don't know you, then I think the hardest part is convincing them that your book is worthwhile. And it's a lot easier to do if a book costs, $5 on Amazon. They can look at that and go, okay, am I willing to spend this money? It's, my Starbucks coffee today, or let me get this book. It's much easier to convince them versus sitting down and going, okay, this paperback is what, 12, $20. Should I get it? This is kind of an investment. Actually, no, I'm just going to buy myself this book over here by this author that came out that I know that I'm going to love. So I think you have to weigh the pros and cons of it. But I don't think, again, as a rest, I don't think there's any harm in trying it out yourself. And if you do have a big pool in your community, seeing who can come in. But I've heard of authors that go sit at Barnes and Nobles and have their event and no one comes because they don't know them. Or they'll see them, they're like, oh, someone's sitting over there signing books, no idea what that's about. But I think if you have a lot of people there and you can really build up that community, and if you have gorgeous covers that people will absolutely want, then that will help as well. So yeah, just a lot of thoughts there. I try not to be a negative person that says no, never try that, because you know what, I could be wrong. You could have a massive community of support right there. I had a book release party for my very first book, and I was surprised. Like, all my friends came out and they all bought a copy of the book, and I had little gift bags to give away. I mean, I hosted it at my apartment, and that was just like friends coming out to support it. But that was a lot of fun, and that was awesome. And it wasn't I did not have a bigger pool for, a bigger community to come out. It was just friends and family, and that's it. And it was a ton of fun. And I sold out of all the books that I ordered. I only ordered like 30. So that's not a massive number, but it was successful. And that was awesome. So think about ways outside of the box that you can plan a live event or partner with someone else or partner with a community in order to make it successful, and try that first. If you have your heart absolutely set on getting your book in bookstores, try that first. And then after that, you can start trying to expand to other counties and other states and see how that goes.
Absolutely love it. So good. That final point there, just weigh out the pros and the cons. Know the numbers, on a general basis of, how successful a book is if it ends up on a bookshelf, but then also just see your community reach. If you've got that reach, by all means. But if you don't, digital may be your best friend. But this was absolutely awesome. Angela, thank you for just sharing, so much value and just letting us into your journey, so to speak, of just being this prolific international best-selling author. So much value, so much fun, really great conversation. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with, especially if they're wanting to be a full-time indie author, or if maybe they were considering to go traditional publishing, but now they're like, oh, maybe being an indie author is probably the better path for me? What would you tell these listeners that are wanting to be where you are now?
Yeah, well, number one, I would say keep writing. Don't let your writing go to waste. Just keep writing. And then number two, I would say learn as much as you can. Listen to shows like this, get involved with communities, and then also deep dive into courses if you need to. Find courses on learning how to self-publish your own stuff and learn as much as possible, because it helps so much when you are starting out. If you have done the work and you've learned as much as possible versus flying by the seat of your pants. That's very stressful. So do yourself a favor and make sure that you are continuing to learn and grow, and then focus on honing your craft and making it perfect. Make sure you have your writing schedule set so that you can continue to make this a career. So that's what I say. Go for it. You've got this.
That is absolutely awesome. Well, guys, we were so glad to do this episode for you. We hope that you get a ton of value out of it. And once again, I am Stephanie Blah.
And I'm Angela J. Ford.
And it was awesome doing this for you guys. And see you guys on the next episode.
The journey to becoming a full-time author on your own terms doesn't have to be lonely or hard. We have an awesome community where we chat daily, write together, and motivate each other. To be part of this vibrant community of indie authors living their best bookish life on their own terms, go to indieauthorlifestyle.com/inner circle for more information. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love to hear more from you. Leaving a rating or a review helps us to create more great content like this. Be sure to rate this episode and subscribe to the show. Thanks for listening to the Indie Author Lifestyle Show. See you inside the community.